You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about sports in the state of Michigan?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media, the show that provides research and statistics about all the Detroit and Michigan sports teams, whether fans like it or not, and detects, exposes, and reveals actual and hidden facts and truth that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no slappiness, no coddling, no pop culture, no conspiracy theories, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast.com. Follow us on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. And like and share our verified Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Also listen to us on Spreaker, CastBox, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts via iTunes, and Spotify. And like Stables Media on Facebook. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers, nor does it represent or compete against any mainstream media in the state of Michigan. It is also not for entertainment or debating purposes. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them. And it is for every sports fan's own good because the truth is out there. And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, primetime edition on Stables Media. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Ed Smith and Frank Vasner. Ed Smith, how was your week and how are you doing tonight?
I will say that whatever anxiety I may have felt in regards to football or non-football related activities, I will say my mood has been very, very much more relaxed and calm ever since this past Saturday afternoon, to say the least. And it took my mind off of the steaming pile of dung that was the Lions and Michigan, and for that matter, Michigan State as well. So other than that, my weekend's going pretty good straight.
Awesome. Frank, how about yours?
Well, aside from watching all three of the football teams in this state play like crap, I took that frustration and channeled it into a strong performance at my day job. Another good week put in, but I'm ready to talk with you guys.
Awesome. So before we get started, we want to remind everyone to download the all-new social sports app called Big It, which influences more and more people to love sports. Enter the referral code STABLES with a capital S, as in Stables Media, STABLES, Media, Stables Media. The referral code STABLES. Download the Big It app, referral code STABLES. Get just football to recap, also little Pistons and NBA news to talk about. No story vault tonight, unfortunately, so let's get to it. Michigan Wolverines lose to the Indiana Hoosiers 38-21. Their defense didn't show up much, and their offense just couldn't keep up. Indiana, I could have predicted Indiana to win, and they did. Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, just not good defense by Michigan at all, and the blame has to be placed on defensive coordinator Don Brown, doesn't it?
Yeah, but for that matter, so does the head coach. He should be getting some a heaping lion's share of this criticism as well, because however you may want to, in essence, scapegoat Don Brown, some level of accountability has to fall upon the head coach, because he's the head coach. So when you in regards to how the defense has performed, or rather how they have not performed this year early on compared to previous seasons, not only is it alarming, but frankly, it's just unacceptable. I understand that there was problems and issues that I had in regards with how Don Brown might have had probably a lack of adjustments, or not being able to make adjustments or changes in regards to how certain teams, i.e. Ohio State, knew exactly what you were going to bring to the table, and they used that against you and just pummeled you to the ground. We've been seeing more and more of that helpless state of feeling for some reason consistently keep the defense underwater. And when you have a defense that is your struggle, and that's like your base option of how you want to identify yourself as a football team, when that is in weird chaos, then that alone is going to mess up your rhythm and foundation of the rest of your team in other aspects, primarily the offense. When you have an offense that's trying to constantly play from behind for the majority of the game because the defense isn't holding up their end of the bargain, then yeah, it's going to create a sense of desperation of like, wow, this is the best you can muster, the best you can do on the offensive end of things. I still like Joe Milton as the starting quarterback, but this effort that we've seen from the offense is just severely lacking. We obviously saw the same issues in regards to the game against Michigan State. We saw it come back, rear its ugly head again, but it seemed like even more transparent and more obvious of the problems that have been facing this team so far. And I don't know if at this point of the season, if it can be salvageable. And that's very, very concerning.
It is. Frank, anything to add on that?
I have plenty to add. And I am going to start first with the offense because I've got stuff to say about the defense, but I'm going to wait. Offensively, I mean, Ed, I know you said you like Joe Milton, but can we all admit that a lot of the media and people around this team really jumped the shark by saying Joe Milton was like Patrick Mahomes and Cam Newton, and he was going to be so good. He was going to be another September Heisman. And he has not looked as good. He can't throw a deep ball. He's only good in short range. So what's it going to take? Is he going to have to start putting more effort in at working on his deep ball, or is he just not the guy? And I've even heard people say maybe Harbaugh should go find Dylan McCaffrey and convince him to come back because I guess McCaffrey hasn't officially transferred yet. I mean, that's not what I would do, but I think that option is, at a minimum, being considered. Or do you possibly turn the keys over to J.J. McCarthy and say, you know what, this whole Milton thing didn't work out, and then you still have a lot of egg on your face? And also, this whole going with 4 running backs, why not go with Hassan Haskins? It's pretty clear to me that he's your most productive back. You got to ride your horse. But oh no, we got to go and get all these freshmen that we brought in and give them promised carries. I mean, I have my thoughts thinking the whole promising them playing time is stuff for video games, but I digress. And now I'll get to the defense. And it is beyond me how Don Brown still collects a paycheck after the following 2 seasons when he should have been fired after giving up 62 to Ohio State. I have seen Lincoln Riley fire his mentor's brother after his team gave up half 100 to Texas a couple of years ago, but apparently either Jim Harbaugh doesn't have the balls to tell Don Brown, say, Don, you're not getting the job done. We're going to go a different direction. Thank you for your time here. See ya. Or there's somebody else pulling the strings here. And I think it's probably the former. Because this Michigan defense has looked a lot, and I mean a lot, like Michigan State defense when Chris Smeeland was the defensive coordinator, and there were 0 adjustments to the way teams were playing. And look, I don't need to give you PTSD. It kind of gives me bad flashbacks, too. I could have said back to the Rich Rod days, but it's just gotten bad, and it's a huge indictment on Harbaugh that he doesn't seem to want to do anything about it. And you also, and I'll even mention this again, he still does not have a new contract, and his contract expires after next season. So it still kind of makes you wonder if he could possibly be on his way out on his own accord, or if the university might be saying, you know what, we're just going to make this look like an amicable separation, or it ends in a lot more of a nasty way. You got any thoughts?
Well, here's the fact. Jim Harbaugh and Don Brown continue to coddle each other on their own power. Don Brown saying Jim Harbaugh's a perfect head coach. Give me a break. It's just
perfect head coach?
Yeah,
oh my God.
Please, after what I've seen these past few years, perfect is not the word I would use. Perfect is not the word I would use in regards to what I've seen these past few years.
There is no perfect person on earth. There's a hint for you.
Guys, how about this too? It seems like the old Jim Harbaugh that we once knew having success in the NFL, it seems like that Harbaugh is dead. And he died the day Ohio State beat them in 2016. And I know people will reference a controversial spot. No, that wasn't the spot the reason you lost. You lost because you quit when Ohio State got awarded a first down. You didn't attempt to tackle Curtis Samuel in double overtime, but I digress.
Well, Jim Harbaugh still had a timeout left. It's not solely on the referees. Jim Harbaugh...
Need I remind you that Michigan had, I believe, close to a double-digit point lead at some point in that game, and it was on the verge of putting it away.
Exactly.
And then what? They gagged it. They blew it.
Yes.
You blew it!
Yeah, 3 turnovers. One of them a pick six, another pick inside the 20. And
not to mention fumbling right on the goal line of Ohio State's end zone.
Yep, there's a 3rd turnover for you. Yeah, it's mostly on Harbaugh and the team instead of just solely the refs. And fans still want to complain about that. And not to mention that Harbaugh died when Harbaugh himself came to Michigan in the first place because he started calling his own school, guys, mind you.
So, I'll buy that.
Yeah. It's easy to concoct in anybody's head if you're a Michigan realist fan, if you know what I'm talking about. So, home against Wisconsin Saturday at 7:30 on ABC. I think Wisconsin's going to win that one, but Ed, first we need your analysis, and then we're going to go to Frank on this one. Ed, take it away.
In regards to the dreadful performance that we saw, I doubt things are going to get better because whatever problems you might have had with Indiana, Wisconsin can amplify it even more so. We saw what Wisconsin could have done for you. I think the reason why they didn't blow you out when it was in Madison a couple of years back, they felt bad. They felt bad because they saw, how Michigan was clinging to life with their 3rd-string quarterback. They had a myriad of issues in regards to keeping their QBs healthy. And really, that game was not as close, was even more wider than the score would indicate. So if they didn't go full-blown Ohio State, I don't think they're going to do it either, but it's still not going to be an impressive show outing either. I'm thinking this is going to be another bad game. It may not be the margin of defeat may not be as wide as we saw here against Indiana, but if you're going to get smoked like this against Indiana and play a horrible game against Michigan State, and trail the way you trailed against Minnesota, why should I have even confidence or belief that, or any expectation that you have a good, strong chance of playing well in this game, let alone winning it? So I'm not. If they prove me wrong, sure, cool, go figure. But I'm going to go with Wisconsin to win this one. I'm thinking a 42-28 type of score if they get even that close.
Yeah, very good prediction, Ed. Frank, your turn.
I'm going to look to see if Michigan has actually quit on Harbaugh, which I'm starting to think they have. If there's any sense of pride left in this team, I'll see how it is in the final score. Now, I don't think they're going to win because Wisconsin's going to have Graham Mertz back. Now, I don't know how rusty he'll be after being out due to COVID issues and Wisconsin not playing the last couple of weeks. But against a defense that refuses to make any kind of adjustments, I think Mertz is going to have a field day. This isn't your typical Wisconsin team that's going to just pound you with the football and run it. They might sling it around, and they'll probably run it some too because they're Wisconsin. I'm going to go Wisconsin wins 45-24. And if it's any closer, then maybe I'll start to believe that there's some sense of pride with this Michigan team. But if they lose 3 straight, which I think they will, I think the season is pretty much a lost cause because there is no chance that you're going to be able to go to Indianapolis now if you lose 3 straight.
Right.
And,
I'm going to pick Wisconsin. Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
I was going to say, Frank, you mentioned the tidbit about how whether or not are we witnessing the team quitting on Harbaugh, which wouldn't be too surprising because usually it's around this point that teams, frankly, they start to get tired of it. They get tired of the antics or the underachieving or whatever the case may be, and eventually Harbaugh and the team start to slowly but surely distance themselves from each other. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the same thing happen here.
Right. I'm going to pick Wisconsin 49, Michigan 24. I think the defense will fall flat yet again, and their offense might have a little bit left in the tank, but they're definitely not going to keep up with the way their defense is playing against the Wisconsin Badgers. The Badgers' offense is too powerful. Wisconsin's ranked 13th, I believe. Yeah, Indiana's ranked 10th. They're playing Michigan State this Saturday at noon on ABC, and we're going to get to the Spartans first before their game against Indiana. The Spartans got absolutely annihilated by the Iowa Hawkeyes, 49-7 in Iowa City, just like they have many times in the past. And Frank, you pointed out that Iowa was bad, but we're going to go to Ed Smith first. Ed, what exactly happened? Michigan State, on both sides of the ball, just came totally unprepared, and they paid an ultimate price.
Yeah, they did. It was just, I don't know, whatever it is, maybe they got too close in contact with Michigan. I guess apparently instead of COVID, they rub off suckiness onto them because the effort or lack thereof that we saw from Michigan was even more transparent here by Michigan State. Just flat out just got dominated, yes, but they definitely quit and gave up on this game. At least they packed this one in and called it a day long before the final clock hit. So I wish I could say this is a game you could just burn the tape and move on to the next one, but I doubt that's the case, because we saw how they performed against Rutgers. And obviously, we know how bad of a team Michigan is for them to perform the way they did and get the win. So I wish I could say things can go up from here, but I'm not feeling confident in saying that.
No, Frank,
here's what I'll say. I mean, look, Iowa seemingly coming together and I guess blocking out all the noise that Kirk Ferentz is an ardent racist and guys are quitting the team and stuff like that. I'll say, you know what, well done. He came out, pulled together, they're in all three phases. But as for Michigan State, my biggest gripe in this one is, why didn't Mel Tucker empty out his bench and let other guys play? You didn't have a spring practice, and at a point like that, and you could obviously tell Rocky Lombardi was hurt. One interception he threw, you could tell something was bothering his knee. You should say, you know what, Rocky, let's keep you healthy. Put Peyton Thorne or Theo Day or even Noah Kim in. Let them get some meaningful reps and let the younger guys play and see what they can do. I mean, that's probably what I'm most fed up about. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, and you got to be ready for the next one. I still give Mel Tucker a pass for this year because, again, he got hired in February, didn't have a spring practice, only had like 4 weeks to get to know his team and get everything together. But two bad losses like this really kind of makes me say, okay, either the offseason was just that bad, or you couldn't really get it together. There's deeper issues. And I'll get to my prediction against Indiana momentarily, but I don't think that one's going to go too well either.
No, Indiana's going to come into East Lansing and bring their A game against the Spartans. And that's what we're going to get to right now. Saturday and noon on ABC, like I mentioned before, Hoosiers at Spartans. Ed, analyze, and who you got?
The analyzation of this is, we saw how Indiana was to perform masterfully with their offense against Michigan. And even though MSU's defense, I guess, will be considered on that similar level, I don't think they're going to have any type of success trying to slow down, much less stop Indiana's offense. We saw how horrid they looked against Iowa, and knowing how proficient Indiana can and will be almost on a consistent basis, you know, what gives you the confidence that MSU can make anything happen here. And as even before we get to the offense, and knowing that, you know, Rocky Lombardi, yeah, he gives his effort, but there's still a lot of just raw, uninhibited things that need freshening out, need more smoothing out. And that shows in his mistakes and some of the decisions that he makes. So when you combine that and add and fuse all those factors together, it comes to me that Indiana is going to win this game by a score of 28-14, in my view.
Yeah, Indiana's got a good defense as well. Frank, analyze and predict.
Well, at last check, I knew that the spread in this game was Indiana -8. However, the one thing that kind of gives me some semblance of hope is that this could be a potential trap game for Indiana, because next week they play Ohio State with potentially first place in the Big Ten East down the line, and the winner of that game basically could say, you know what, we're going to Indy unless something completely crazy happens. So maybe there's a possibility you catch Indiana looking ahead to a showdown in Columbus, but I'm not so sure that happens. I think Tom Allen's got his guys focused, and I think Indiana, being how healthy they are with Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback, he had himself a nice game against Michigan. Stevie Scott, their running back, and Wap Fillier, wide receiver, who I've been really high on, I've mentioned many a time here, and also Peyton Hendershot, their tight end. I think Indiana's got too many weapons on offense, and I think Michigan State will bounce back somewhat, but I think Indiana's just going to be too much. I'm going to say 34 Indiana, 24 Michigan State.
All right. I'm going to go 31-20 Hoosiers on this game. So, that's Michigan State Spartans football. One headline to pass along to you. Michigan State Spartans men's basketball head coach Tom Izzo has contracted COVID-19. No word since, unless any of you guys picked up that he's recovering from COVID-19.
Well, I did hear a snippet of him being on a Zoom call with the media, and I guess he's been asymptomatic. I'm not sure how he ended up contracting it, but who knows? Maybe he just got close to someone who did. But it sounds like he's doing okay. So I mean, send my well wishes to him. Hopefully, he can recover quickly and be ready to go by the time the season gets going.
Yeah, our prayers to him. Speedy and healthy recovery. And Ed, I know you're a Michigan. Yep, fan. Yep, Tom Izzo's one of the best.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of however you may feel for the sake of this dumb little rivalry, there's no denying you have to be absolutely delusional to not recognize the impact that Tom Izzo has had, obviously, at Michigan State, let alone in Big Ten, and obviously throughout all of college basketball. Not really like an MSU trying to downplay the significance that Bo Schembechler had in shaping Michigan football into what it had been in its glory, in its heyday. So I just, obviously, above all else, wish Coach Izzo the best, and obviously in his family too, because you don't know if they have to now possibly quarantine and isolate as well. And obviously, this is just not going to be. It's not going to be an easy goal, but I think with the right amount of faith and goodwill, I believe that Coach Izzo will find a way to pull through this. So, wishing nothing but the best for him and his family, without question.
Let's go to some Lions, shall we? They lost as well, 34-20, as seen on CBS, not Fox. I want to correct my mistake. So the Lions never led in the game. Stafford only 211 passing yards, which is uncharacteristic. 1 touchdown pass and 2 interceptions before he got hit hard and left the game with a head injury, but later cleared concussion protocol after the game, thankfully. DeAndre Swift, 13 carries for 64 rushing yards. He's not only been bad, but he's been schemed improperly by Matt Patricia. And Adrian Peterson, washed up as usual. He's not schemed properly as well. 8 carries for 29 yards.
Not to mention not producing or cashing in on third and short opportunities.
Correct. And, of course, the defense looked below average overall, except they easily gave up that 70-yard touchdown run by Dalvin Cook.
Where they only had 10 men on the field. Again.
Yes, that's right. Only 10 men.
Guys, that's the second week in a row that they've had 10 men on the field when the opponent scored a touchdown. Having only 10 men on the field, that's something that you're taught.
That's on the
football,
coach.
Make sure you have enough guys.
And that's on the coach. That's got to fall on the coach. How in the world do you not have your players prepped and knowledgeable of the fact that, hey, you're literally short a man on the field. Get someone out there. And that happened in back-to-back games. That's an indictment on the coach, without question. And for the record,
that's a fireable offense.
Obviously, if with what we call what Michigan had done under Harbaugh this year, a potential fireable offense for anybody else, you have to apply that same logic without question to Matt Patricia, without question. And for the fact that for a fact that Dalvin Cook has run roughshod over your defense in the past, and yet you still didn't have a proper game plan or how to adjust for him, says it all, really.
Yeah, and I read an article from ESPN, the midseason report, and it headlines, and it includes the Lions. The biggest question left to answer, the biggest question for the team for the rest of the season is, what is going to happen after it? Will owner Sheila Fordham keep Patricia and or general manager Bob Quinn, or will the franchise be in for a rebuild? If it's a rebuild, what does that mean for quarterback Matthew Stafford? Detroit has shown, other than a win at Arizona, that it can't hang with good teams on its schedule. With a rough December slate, Chicago, Green Bay, Tennessee, and Tampa Bay, there might not be many wins left on the schedule this season. And the final record prediction, 6-10. Detroit wins 2 of its next 3 and steals 1 in December, which I think is not possible. I think they go 5-11, just to be fair. But that's still a fireable record for Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, you have to agree with me on this one.
Absolutely. I mean, they play like a team that really, if you be honest, they play like a team that should be having 4 wins as the projected win total, not 5, God forbid, 6. Matthew Stafford, with the whirlwind week he has had, with being placed on the COVID list and being activated and then getting bumped. By the way, him being on that list meant he had to miss valuable practice time leading up to the game. then getting smacked around by the Minnesota defense again, leading to the fact that he had to go into the concussion protocol. Oh my goodness. I just don't see how this game is going to work out as well as either. Stafford will give it his best effort, but when the rest of the team is discombobulated with the running game not being falling off the cliff massively, and the defense still not being able to figure out how to make a proper adjustment to stopping the run, how do you factor in that you're going to be able to get a win here? And yeah, I just don't see that possible either. So
me neither. Frank?
I gotta agree with you as well. Much like I said about Michigan, this team is playing like they don't care. Like they have quit. Again, it's further evidenced by 10 men on the field in back-to-back weeks on a scoring play by your opponent. I don't think anyone even cares anymore. And I'm going to ask this as well. Where is Sheila Ford Hamp to make a statement about this team? Hello? Sheila, are you here?
As I just mentioned, ESPN just mentioned it.
Yeah. I mean, if she's owning the team, she's at least got to say something about her GM and coach's performance. Nothing. And I don't know, and it still leads me to wonder if she really is going to make a change in the off season or even before the season ends. But the fact that she's not doing anything or offering any indication is just as disturbing to me.
Right. And then
runs in the family.
Right. And then they got the Washington football team at Ford Field Sunday at 1, this time on Fox. Thank you very much. I need to check the schedule more often than I do. So it's a tank bowl, Lions and football team. Yeah. Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, take it away.
Well, I would say that that Washington would have had a better shot if their QB if they didn't have another QB die of leg injuries apparently this past weekend. So there goes that effort. Even still, I suspect that this is still going to be a bit of a struggle throughout the game. The Lions defense does not know how to get off the field on third down in a timely manner. I've yet to see, it's one game, so I'm not going to completely take a dump over Everson Griffin just yet. It's literally just one game for him to make his adjustments to this new team, new lineups, new scheme, all of that. So there's still that. But if the pass rush can't get anything in this game, then it lets you know that there was virtually nothing done to correct the mistakes or the glaring weaknesses that were there. Regardless, assuming Stafford does not just simply plays a better game than he did last week, you should be able to get the win easily. So knowing that, I'm just going to say that Detroit is going to eke out a win. A 27-24 type of victory, because both teams have been mediocre at best, to say the very least.
Yep, me too. Frank, your turn. Analyze and predict.
Well, I know Washington is starting Alex Smith, and there's a part of me that hopes that Alex Smith has a good game after he almost lost his leg to a gruesome injury a couple of years ago. And you know what? It seems like Washington is better somewhat on the defensive side of the ball, whereas the Lions, what are they good in aside from Jack Fox being one of the top punters in the NFC? I think Washington is going to win a pretty ugly game. I'll say 20-17.
All right. I'm going to pick Lions 24-21. I'll let them go just this one time. So there's that. And then we got the Pistons, last thing to talk about. They're planning to trade up for LaMelo Ball, who could move up to number 1 overall in the NBA Draft. That's what we've been hearing earlier this week. So the question is, could the Pistons move up to number 1? Darren Weiss doubts it, but we never know. Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, go ahead.
I think it may require them having to overcompensate just to essentially swap draft picks. With Minnesota. I feel Minnesota may ask for too much. That's why they probably won't. There may not be a deal at the end of the day unless they really want to get the player that they want, that they so covet. I don't know if I would potentially give up all that just to move up and take LaMelo Ball. Granted, he does have upside, but it is a definite boom or bust possibility when you consider that his shot selection leads to the wild inaccuracies of his shooting accuracy, particularly from 3-point range, to where, yes, I would say he's a better scorer or a better shooter than his older brother Lonzo, but I think he just needs to work on controlling himself when shooting so many of them, because you see it affects his average and his accuracy, makes him look way more inaccurate than he really should be. Even though he has size, he's grown into his body more. He's still not that good defensively. If I was the Pistons, if I were considered taking LaMelo anywhere in the draft, I would have to let him know up front, point blank, that listen, up here, you're going to play some defense. We like what you can bring offensively. We know that you have what it takes to be a facilitator, and we want to go young. We want to do, we want to do our new young point guard of the future. But this is what we want from you. We want you to play defense, and we got to toe down on that shot selection. Now, the wild card in this scenario is, if you were to pick LaMelo, well, does this mean are you dealing with LeVar? Because it was the same scenario package deal that other teams, or rather that the Lakers had to deal with until basically LeBron and or whoever was in charge said, enough's enough, and they were able to dump Lonzo to help get Anthony Davis. Now, in regards to Melo, I don't know if this is any legit, because you know how reality TV shows are, but apparently, according to the latest few episodes of the Ball in the Family TV series, or web series, internet series, however you want to categorize it, LaMelo may be, if he has not already, signed a deal with Puma, meaning he's going to be stepping away from Big Baller Brand, stepping out of his family's shadow, making a decision more so for himself. That's a decision, obviously, that's not going to sit well with his father, but it's a decision that, if you ask his older brother Lonzo, one that he definitely should consider, have all his options on the table and do things better and different the way Lonzo himself did, because with the experiences that he went through, that is obviously meant for another topic for another day. But in regards to all that, if LaMelo feels that he wants to be his own man and say, listen, Pops, I appreciate everything, literally everything that you've done for me, but I got to do things for myself now. If he has that mentality, then that's one aspect that will lean me towards selecting him, but I'm still apprehensive. If I'm the Pistons, if I'm going to try to make that type of deal or trade up, I would rather take Anthony Edwards, because if James Wiseman's going to be gone, to me the next best player would be Anthony Edwards. Now, if you're there at 7 and LaMelo's there, would you probably take him? Yeah, best player available, and all the other intangibles I mentioned before.
Yeah, good analysis, Ed. Frank, what do you make of it?
Well, I pretty much agree with Ed. If LaMelo Ball is available at 7, I think you got to take him. And hopefully LeVar will keep his mouth shut and not be a cancer to the team or to LaMelo's development as an NBA player. But, I am kind of in the camp where I hope that if you do trade up, you get Anthony Edwards, because I think you're going to get a better defender and also someone who's not going to have daddy around constantly trying to tell Dwayne Casey how to run the team or tell Troy Weaver how to make decisions or anything like that. So, if LaMelo's available, get him, because you're not getting James Wiseman, but I'm in the Anthony Edwards camp. And if you end up with one of those two guys, I'm happy with it.
Exactly, because to me, this should be a part of your game plan, your core group starting this year going forward. You already got Sekou Doumbouya. I believe Bruce Brown should be considered of that future. Luke Kennard, I'm not sure. But depending on who you can and possibly will get from this draft class, that should be one of your long-term goals, your pet projects, how you want to build this team into a contender. You need a young core. This is going to be one of your key players. So weigh all of your options carefully and choose wisely.
Those are good tips right there.
And let's not forget the draft is a week from tonight, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, November I can't 18th. Wait.
Yeah,
we're going to cover that live.
And free agency will open up on November 20th, 2 days later.
And with regards to hearing the rumors that I guess either Russell Westbrook and or James Harden wants out of Houston, depending on who you believe, something tells me even though we'll have a quicker turnaround than usual, NBA free agency is about to be crazier than ever this year. And we haven't even gotten to the massive free agency class of next season. But NBA's off seasons are always undefeated in terms of wacky, entertaining storylines.
Oh, my God.
You got that right.
It's a virtual NBA draft, keep in mind, but we will cover it right here next week on Stables Media. on the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast Primetime Edition. And by the way, Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN reported the League and Players Association agreed would begin the 2020-2021 season on December 2nd with 72 games per team. The Board of Governors approves it as well. Free agency begins November 20th, as Ed mentioned, at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. The salary cap will be set at $109.1 million. The luxury tax will be $132.7 million. So that's out of the way, and now we go to the closing statement. Ed, what is your closing statement? Then we'll go to Frank. Ed, go ahead.
The closing statement that I'm about to make is something that I did not want to make for a while, but it's something that with each growing week is becoming a possible inevitability that I may have to confront, and that is this may be the farewell year for Jim Harbaugh at the University of Michigan. I don't want to see it. I hate to say it, and I don't even want to think about the possibility of how his tenure may go down an absolute abject failure. But it's looking like that empty promise possibility. It is a pit of my stomach feeling that I've seen familiarize itself with the Tigers over this past decade, and I have seen the same worrying signs here as well in regards to Michigan. The focus is not there. The heart and intensity is not there. The attention to detail is not there. Everything is completely off, and you've got to start and end with the head coach. I'm sorry if that's fair or not fair, but it's the reality of the situation. And when you
it's the truth.
And when you consider around this time period, that usually around this time, that's when things, Harbaugh usually wears out his welcome. It wouldn't be a surprise here. I've been trying to defend and dismiss these feelings or these rumors or these murmurs or these theories as premature. What are we talking about? But I got to be honest and recognize and call a spade a spade. If this turns out to be Harbaugh's last year in Michigan, quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised.
And speaking of the Tigers, breaking news here from The Score. The Tigers are eyeing a veteran starter from the Toronto Blue Jays, Taijuan Walker. The Tigers, among other teams, are showing interest in free agent pitcher Taijuan Walker, a righty. So, Frank?
Yeah, I just saw that too.
Closing statement.
My closing statement, and I know Ed kind of took a lot of the words out of my mouth, but I think I need to say it to a lot of my Michigan brethren. Jim Harbaugh, when you all told me that he was going to bring you multiple national championships and you were going to be dominating the Big Ten and beating Ohio State, in the words of Stephen A. Smith, and I'm not saying this to all Michigan fans because I know there are plenty of realists out there whom I know, and one of them, you all were hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived. And it's showing its ugly head right now because I don't see any way how they're going to beat Wisconsin, which would be the first 3-game losing streak, actually second, if we go back to 2017 when they lost to Wisconsin, Ohio State, and the bowl game. And that's basically where the wheels will likely come off, and this separation is going to either be a rehearsed, peaceful one, or it could end up being very nasty. How it ends, only time will tell. It's really going to depend on how well U of M President Mark Schlissel and Athletic Director Warren Manuel, how much they want to get their hands dirty. But it seems to me as if Warren Manuel is kind of becoming a good old boys AD, where he's like, Jim, we're paying him $9 million, and we don't want to pay him his buyout clause. Well, Warren, I'm here to say you're probably not going to have a choice. Since you're one of college football's biggest brands, you got to do what's right and what's hard, not what's easy, if you want to be considered elite.
Right. My closing statement, I have a really good feeling that Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn might be fired and the Lions might have to rebuild. Even I'm getting tired of Matthew Stafford myself, like I mentioned before, and the Lions might have to rebuild anyway, by all means. That being said, I cannot wait for hockey and basketball season to begin again. And then the Tigers next spring, or this upcoming spring, whichever. So that's my closing statement. Before we go, we want to remind everyone to download the all-new social sports app VigIt, which influences more and more people to love sports. Enter the referral code STABLES. Download the VigIt app and enter the referral code STABLES with a capital S and a B in the middle. Gentlemen, excellent job as always. That concludes another fine episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast Primetime Edition on Stables Media. We'll be back next week. For Ed Smith and Frank Badger, on behalf of Darren Weiss, this is Taylor Phillips signing off. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing. And remember, the truth is out there. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Power to the people. Hit them with a hind. We rest our case. Stay safe. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers, nor does it represent or compete against any mainstream media in the state of Michigan. It is also not for entertainment or debating purposes. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them. And it is for every sports fan's own good because the truth is out there.